Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. This is Karen Greenhouse. I'm going to be presenting today. I currently am a adjunct professor at Drexel University. I teach in their math master's online program. I was just calculating this out, a math educator for 31 years. So I started when I was 10. But I also am a spokesperson for Casio America, and I work very diligently on ClassPad.net. So I am presenting because I'm very familiar with it. And joining me is Amy Chow. So I'm going to let her introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. I am the training and product manager with Casio. I have been here for 10 years, and before that, I was a high school math teacher. Just before I throw it back to Karen for her to get started, I just wanted to remind everyone that for the sake of audio quality, we're going to have everyone muted. If you have a question, you can type it in the chat panel. So what I would actually recommend right now is if you haven't opened it up already, hover over the screen that you're seeing, and at the bottom you should see the chat option. Once you open that up, it's not going to cover anything that Karen does on the main screen. It'll actually kind of open up to the side. And that way you can, type any questions you have as we're going through as Karen's going through the presentation. And then if I see, the same kind of question repeating itself, then I might stop Karen and have her answer it, out loud, so the entire group can hear, or I will answer the questions, separately. So I guess I'll just pass back to you, Karen.
Okay, so this is the second in a series that we're doing. We're doing 3 really kind of basic overviews of ClassPad.net first, and then we're going to start doing some webinars that are content focused and icon focused. So hopefully you joined us for the last webinar, which was What is ClassPad? If you missed that one, I suggest maybe you go view that. We have it on our website for you to view. It was more the what does ClassPad do? What's the math? This webinar is how do you find ready to use sources, because we do have activities and lessons that are ready to go that you don't have to do any creating. You just basically have to find them and start using them, and that's really helpful. I mean, why reinvent the wheel? So there's a lot of things out there. So this webinar is about where are those resources? How do you find them? And then if you like something, how do you save it? And then if you are creating your own, or you found one you liked and you modified it a bit, how do you then share it with your colleagues, your students, and that type of thing? So that's what this webinar is focused on. So again, if you have more specific questions about the functionality of ClassPad.net, that's not what we're doing in this webinar. That can be found in the previous webinar, webinar part 1, and then we're going to be doing a lot more on specific functionality as we move along. And you can also find them in our YouTube section as well. So I'm going to get started. I'm going to assume that everyone has an understanding of what ClassPad is. I'm going to switch my screen right now to the landing page. So Amy, please let me know if you can't see it. Hopefully it's switched over. Is it good?
Yep.
All right. So this is the landing page, ClassPad.net. For those of you who may not have joined us the last webinar, this is where you would go to find information. So I'm just going to quickly scroll through here. Across the top are things about kind of overviews of each of the features of ClassPad. That's a great resource to look at. The training and the videos I was talking about, we do have a lot of support. We have a YouTube channel that has a lot of how-tos and support, so that's a great place to go if you want to learn about it. And we're going to be diving into the activities in just a minute. But if you didn't join us last time, or you're new to this is the landing page. This is a nice video that does a really quick snapshot of everything that ClassPad can do. But if you scroll down, you'll see here's some key features. You can share activities. This is what we're focusing on today, is the creating and sharing of activities. But you can create an account here. So those of you who don't have an account, this is where you go to create it. And it's pretty self-explanatory. Once you click it, it walks you through the process. You just need a Gmail, or you can connect through, I think it's Microsoft or Google.
Microsoft, well, both.
Yeah, both. And then here's another link to the video tutorial. So for those of you new to this, the landing page is going to have a lot of information. So I'm going to dive right into the focus of this webinar, which is how do you find activities that are already created so that you don't have to necessarily create them yourself? And when you find them, what do you do with them? And then we're going to dive into, once you have your account and you have these activities that you're creating or that you found, how do you manage them? How do you share them? How do you tag them? So that's where we're going. So I'm going to start at the very basics. This is the landing page, and you notice up here at the top, we have activities. So if you just click that link, we have sorted kind of, Amy, how did we do this? It's sort of highlighting.
It's highlighting the icons. So we have, 4 main icons: calculate, graph, geometry, and data. And then within each icon, it kind of breaks it down by kind of content level. So, some algebra related activities, some geometry, a lot of geometry related.
A lot of geometry. Yeah.
And then maybe some middle school. So you will actually see them, some of these activities in multiple places. Just because, using geometry, you might also want to use like the calculate, sticky note. So that activity might appear in both sections. But it's,
right.
So that's
so
kind of how
these are not all of the activities. These are just some key ones that we found that we highlighted that we think are good to highlight on the page. So this is the first place to go. So if you are, let's say you're doing geometry and you want, let's go back to where I was, geometry, and let's just pick one. So once you can search this page by content and icon. So I'm in the geometry sticky and I am looking at specific geometry ones. So maybe I like this one right here, proving patterns. So when you click it, what it does is it takes you to that activity. And every activity, when anyone creates an activity in ClassPad.net, it gets a unique URL. And so that I can see that right up here. In this activity that I clicked from. So I am now in that activity that has been shared freely, and I can work on it. And so you'll notice it has some text with directions and some angles, those types of things. They have to construct their own things in this particular, this is a geometry icon. So the activities are ready to go. There's places for students to answer questions. There's places for them to move things and do things around. And I'm in the activity and I can interact with it as much as I want. But if I don't have an account, and I'm going to look up here to the right, this means I'm just using this activity as just any old user. I don't have a ClassPad account. If I want to save what I did, so if you shared this with students or you were just playing with it and you want to save, you have to have an account, because if you don't have an account, ClassPad doesn't know where to save things. So that's what we're going to do. I found this activity. How do I then get it to be in my own account so that whenever I want it, it's always there? So in order to save this, you have to log into your own account. So if you don't have an account, this is why I recommend you logging in and creating one. So I'm going to actually do that myself. So I went back to the home page, and since I do have an account, I'm going to hit login, register, and log myself into my account. And obviously I'm already logged in. So I want you to see the difference. This one right here is just working as any old user, no account. Up here in the right-hand corner, I don't see the cloud. This page is me in my account. And so this is the main difference of how you can tell if you're in your account or not in your account, is you see this icon, right? So I'm going to just copy this URL real quick. And I'm going to go back to my account and paste that URL in again. And so here's that activity. And if I want to save it to my account, you'll see up here this icon. It's kind of, I don't know, stacked papers, I guess is how we might do it. That icon says duplicate. And that means, do you want us to make a copy of this paper that you found? And the answer is yes. So if I just click it, what it does, it kind of, since I'm already logged into my account, it will make a copy of it. And so you see it kind of goes away for a second. And now here's that same activity, but now I know it's in my account because of the cloud. So now I've made a copy. So it's very easy to find an activity and then copy it into your account. All you have to do is hit this duplicate. And then once it's in your account, it is your activity. You can modify it. You can use it exactly as you want. You can add things to it. You can take things away. It is now your paper. It has its own unique URL that goes with it. So that's how to find activities from the main page. So where's another place to find activities? Well, once you're in an account, we have a lot more activities. Some of them from the page are there as well, but you have more. So where do you find that? In your account, and on the left-hand side, there's this little icon that is also looks like stacked paper, slightly different than the duplicate. If you click that, this is where all the papers that you've worked on, that you've saved, live. They live in your paper. So this is your paper management. And this is what I'm focusing most of today on, because you'll notice I have folders here. Then here's that paper that I just saved, right? I just duplicated it. Here it is now living in my account. I have a lot of papers that I have clearly not put into folders, so I need to do some organizing, and we're gonna do that today with you. So that's exciting. So once you're in your papers, where are the other activities? Where would you find other activities? So you'll notice on the left-hand side, you have a couple different, words over here. So shared papers.
Options.
What is that? Options. Thank you. So shared papers, if I click that, I don't know if you can tell, but this is sort of grouped with my papers. This is simply papers that are mine that I have shared with others, as far as I can tell. Yeah. But what you're interested in is public papers. So public paper means that whoever created them decided that they wanted to share them with the world. And when you click on that, what it does first, it kind of groups them by the newest that have been added. This is not all of them, and it has them by staff picks as well. But there's a lot more. So if you want to find more, so here I am in public papers, and I want to search, there's the search bar. And you can search by, if you look here, there's these little drop-down menus. You can search just in your own papers, in public papers, so we're only going to look in public papers. You can look for student or teacher. I don't know that people are identifying themselves. So this is sort of what you want to look at as public papers. So now what you're going to do is type in like a keyword. So let's type in triangle and see what happens. We're going to focus on geometry today. So I typed in the word triangle, and what it has done is pulled up all of the activities that have been publicly shared that people have identified the word triangle in them somewhere, whether that's in the title or it's in the tags that they've attached to it, which we're going to be exploring today. So now I have these activities, and it's the same process. Let's say I love this one right here, geometry circumcenter of an isosceles triangle. I click the activity. It pops the activity up. Notice up here, no cloud. That means I'm working in the activity, but it's not in my account. So if I don't save it, what the work I've done goes away. So this is an activity about the circumcenters, right? So we've got different things we can do. I love it. Duplicate. This just takes a little while, and then the cloud appears when I know it's in my account. So now it is in my account, and if I go back to my account, we should be able to see it when I go back. Or not. Well, that's interesting. I don't know what happened there, Amy. What do you think?
That is weird.
That was weird. Uh-oh. All right. I don't know what's going on here. I'm just trying to get back into there we go. I don't know what's happening. All right, we're back. So here's that activity saved into my account. Sorry for that little glitch there. So I now have, so before I move on, so basically all we've covered is how do you find activities? So there's ready to use activities on the ClassPad.net website itself, the main page, or if you're in your account, you can go to public papers and find a plethora. And these are being added to every day. I'm adding things. There's people that add every day. And what is nice, you'll notice that you can see the users that have added things here. And sometimes if you like something a user has done, you can even search by that person's name. So Ishmath is someone that has some great activities, and I tend to search by him a lot. And so if I click by them, you can see the authors. Hopefully it's going to come up. It's not coming up. Well, I don't know why he's not coming up. Normally he comes up, and I find his
Click under users.
Oh, maybe that's it. Yeah. Thank you, Amy. There we go. Well, there's a lot. But these are all the different users. And let's just say you love, there is Ishmath, so maybe I just didn't type it in right. So this happens a lot. If you find someone who you think is really creating some great work, you can search just for their work there. And there's all of his work. So I clicked on his name, and you can see he's pretty prolific in his work that he has been providing. So lots of ways to search, but public papers and then on the website are free to use activities for that. So any questions before I move on into, we're going to get into creating folders and kind of basically organizing your activities in your own account. Any questions, Amy?
Nothing so far.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to my papers. So up here, this is my papers. And you'll notice that I have folders and then some that are not in folders. And basically, let's just go into a folder. So you can create folders very easily. So if you notice, it's however you want to organize your papers. So I'm organizing them by subject in some places and then some by just kind of middle school, elementary structure. So let's say I go into middle school. So I want to show you, you can create activities within. So these, I have 2 activities in my middle school, right? So when I click up here, so as you see this folder icon, this lists all of my folders, right? And I can click on each one and notice I can have folders inside of folders and folders inside folders inside folders. So you can have a lot of subfolders. So how do you create a folder? It's very easy. So let's say I'm in my middle school. Actually, let's go back to our top. Let's go back. It's really easy to create a folder, and depending on what level you're on, that's where the folder will live. So this is my top, like my main page. If I wanted a new folder, let's say, what topic don't I have here? Algebra 2. So let's say I wanted to create an Algebra 2 folder. You simply click up to the right. Let me see, up here you see this plus create folder. Just click it. It asks you what you want to name the folder. So we're going to say Algebra 2, and then you hit OK, and you'll notice you now have that folder up at the top of your paper. And there's nothing in this folder right now. So let's say I want to create a folder within a folder. I click the folder that I want to go into. And let's say I'm going to organize my algebra by, I don't know, class periods. So I could, no, that doesn't make any sense, by chapter. So let's say, so again, I just click the folder icon. It asks me what I want to name it. And so I'm going to say chapter 1. Okay, so now I have a folder that lives in my Algebra 2 folder. So a folder within a folder, and I could create a couple more. I don't know, Amy, I don't think there's a limit on how many folders you can create.
I don't believe so either.
Right. So then let's say, okay, so I've got my algebra folder, I've got my chapter folders, and then I could create a folder within that folder by clicking it. And now maybe I could do the sections, a folder for each section or just an activity. So creating folders is very easy, and then you just decide where you want to, how you want to organize that. So I'm going to go back to the top here. I thought, oh, you have to hit OK. I always forget to hit OK. What? All right, come on. All right, so I'm back to the top. So now creating folders is easy. How do you get activities into the folder? Well, if you go into your papers first and go into a folder and then you hit new paper, the new paper is automatically in the folder that you started in. But let's say you just start working and you have now, like I did down here, I have these activities that are not in folders, but I want them to be in folders. So if you notice over here to the right, there are you can mark something that you love as a favorite, by the way, if you want. So all you have to do is click it and it stars it. And so then you can find them easily over here on the left if you want to organize that way. But notice 3 dots, and those of you that were with us last week know that 3 dots always means there's something more. So next to each paper or folder are 3 dots, and when I click it, you have some options here. So for this paper, this is the one that I just found and duplicated and is now in my papers, but I want to put it into a folder. There's a couple things I can do with it. I can share it. create a URL. I can duplicate it, make another copy. I can move it. So let's say you have an activity and you created it and you found it and you want to put it in your geometry folder, which is what I'm doing. I'm going to hit move, and it's going to say, okay, we're going to move it. Where do you want to move it? And it's going to list out all of your folders, and you simply select the one that you want. So I want it in my geometry folder, and it's about triangles. So then once I find the folder, I hit OK. So notice it's going to take me to that folder, and so now this activity is now in my triangle folder. And if I go back to my main page, you'll see that it is now gone from here. So you can move any activity or even a folder. I can also move a folder to another folder to be embedded. So there's lots of ways to move things. While we're here, I also want you to notice that you can do a couple other things. You can rename an activity. So if you don't like the title, like untitled paper, that's probably not a great name. I can duplicate it and I can share it right from within my paper. So I don't have to actually go into the main paper. So let's talk about what these mean. So sharing. If I've created an activity, so I just duplicated this activity. Whoops, I clicked on it accidentally. All right, that's fine. We'll go this way. If I'm creating an activity or I found an activity and I love it and now I want to share it with my students or a colleague, when I'm in the paper, I can go to my 3 dots and I can choose here to share. So, so for sharing can be done kind of private means it's not being shared. No one else can see it. But URL share is sort of almost a protected thing because only people who have that URL can find the activity. So URL would be maybe what you do with your students. If it's an activity you only want your students to see, you would do a URL share. And you can assign a password if you want, and you can also assign a date. So like I'm just going to click here. You can make up your own password if you want a password protected. That's fine. Or a homework just is what date do you want it to be due. So those are nice features if you want to use them with your students. But a URL share, so if I hit apply right now, creates this URL here. And that's what I would then copy and paste into my web page or on an email or on my Google Docs, however you are sharing things with your students. They just need the URL and they're going to be able to open up the activity and work on it. But just like we did earlier, if you have an activity that you found and you're looking at it, a shared activity, it's not going to be saved. Your work wouldn't be saved unless you put it into your own account. So if you share something with a student through the URL, and you want them to show you their work, they're going to need to make sure they save it, duplicate it into their own account, as we did earlier. Public share simply means it's going to be able to be found by everyone who uses ClassPad. So in that public paper section, your document would show up, right? So let's make this one, actually this was copied, so we don't want to do that. So we'll just make this one a URL. So that's how you share. I'm going to go, another thing, I'm getting ahead of myself here. I'm going to go back here a minute. Let's say you are creating something from scratch and you know you're going to want to share it and maybe you want to share it publicly. You want to make sure that you identify it with some keywords and a good title so that others can find your activity. Because if you don't give it some key information, no one's going to be able to find it. So when you're creating your documents, if you do the 3 dots again, you'll notice that you have a place where you can add a description. So when you click it, this is a great place to kind of give a brief summary of what this activity is about. Because somebody who is trying to find it and finds the activity, they might say, I don't even know what this lesson is doing. So a description is a really nice thing to add to a paper that you are going to share with others. Describe what's happening in it, maybe put your standards in there. So descriptions are really nice. So that's where you would find it there. And also, this is probably even more important, is tags. So a tag is those keywords that people might be searching for. And you can add, I forget, Amy, there is a specific number of tags. I feel like I think it's 8 or 10, 8 or 9.
Yeah, around there.
Something like that.
Definitely less than 10.
So one thing to think about when you are sharing and tagging is make sure the words you're using are specific to your activity. You know, This one had triangles. It's about geometry. It has some algebra in it. So the tags you use are what people are looking for. So what would be a common tag that would help people find the activity? That's what we're doing with our tags there. So this one's already got tags on it. Another thing is to make sure your title includes a keyword or something. So this one, we might have even had a triangle in here, but this is geometry proof. Oh, no, this is about angles, isn't it? So angles might have been a good thing to put in the title, but make sure your title is sort of descriptive. This one says geometry, so if somebody's looking for geometry, this is going to pop up. So that's a good thing. I'm going to go back to my papers and also show you another place where you can add in the description and the tags and the sharing. So let's say, I'm just going to scroll down to a paper here. Oh, how do I know if something's been shared in my papers? So you'll notice the papers have, some of them have these little icons. So this icon right here means I have shared this paper already. This is one we just did, and it's shared by a URL. And I don't think that there's, oh, here's one. This icon means I've shared this paper and it's public. So you can tell pretty quickly just visually looking in your own thing what papers you've shared, not shared, and whether they're public or just URL. So public means anyone in ClassPad can find it, and this link right here just means someone has to know the URL, so you have to give it to them somehow, email, website. So let's say I have this activity and I wanted to share it and I forgot. So I'm in my papers, I can click the three dots, and you'll see there's the option to share. So I don't have to actually open the paper, I can just do it right here from my paper management. So when I hit share, here's those same options again. So maybe I want this one to be a URL, and I'm gonna hit apply, and now, let's notice what happened. Now this paper has the URL icon next to it. So boom, I've shared it. Well, I also might want to add some tags. Maybe I forgot to add the tags in. And so you can do that also from this area right here. So this was geometry, heart, I think it was constructions. So just keywords that are important. Okay, so you can do a lot of that here. Now you can't add a description from this menu. If you notice when I click it, you can't add a description, but you could click the paper to go back and add a description, because descriptions are important. But you could rename it if the title didn't have a nice keyword in it. This one has geometry, so I'm good with that title. Any other? I think I've done all that about sharing. And Amy, do you think I forgot anything?
No, you covered everything.
Okay. And I just want to show you, let's say I'm just going to click, this is my favorite folder and this is my favorite paper. I want to show you what that does. So let's say you're searching for things and you know that you click something that was a favorite. Again, on the left-hand side, favorites is one of your options. So when you click favorites, there's all the things that I've marked as being favorites. So it's another way to kind of shorten a search within your own papers, or even within, you can favorite a public paper as well, and it will show up here. So that's something that's nice. Let's see. Another thing I want to, just before we go, is you'll notice up here that I have, right now it's in what's called list view. You could also do what's called thumbnail view, and I'll show you the difference. This is nice if you're trying to, you forgot what you did, you knew you had a paper on something and you forgot where it is. If you notice, it doesn't do much with the folders, those just look like bigger folders, but papers that are within folders, you can actually see a snapshot of the paper. So let's say you're like, I know I did an activity on, you know, equations or something, but I can't remember where it is. If you do the icon thumbnail view, you'll actually see a snapshot of the paper and you can find things that way. I tend to leave it in list view just because this takes a lot more time to load, because I have to load all these millions of pictures. If I were to go back to my papers, let me just show you. There's all my folders. It just takes a while to, but here's all my papers, so I can, like this one right here, unnecessary paper. But when you're in this view, you can also do all of the options here. So it's another way to show your papers and to share them, duplicate them, move them to a different folder. add tags, or in this case, I'm going to delete it because I don't need this paper. So this is how you basically manage all of your papers. And I think we've already showed you, once you have a URL to an activity, you can paste it in an email, on a website, or send it to students through, their classroom management system, however you communicate with your students. They just need the URL.
Yes, and I just want to say that URL is very long. So, we sometimes will go through and go to like a tiny URL or URL shortening website, and then you can make it, much shorter.
Yeah,
if that
I
helps.
mean, I do that a lot when I'm presenting at workshops. I will use the URL. I think it's tinyurl that I tend to use, where you can actually customize it. So I make it be relevant to the workshop, NCTM 2 or something like that.
Yeah.
It's easier for people to type.
Yes.
So I think I'm finished. So this webinar was really just to give you an overview of how to find activities, where they live, and then once you find them, how do you save them, and how do you organize all the activities that you've been working on. So you've got folders and tagging and description. So that was the goal of this webinar, and I'm pretty much done unless there are some questions.
No, I was able to answer all the questions that were asked, and you were able to answer most of them as well. So I think we're good.
Okay, and this webinar has been recorded, and it will be posted on our website if you want to go back and look at things specifically for that. And also for those of you who were not here for the first one about the overview of what ClassPad actually is and does, that's there as well. Oh, and what's our next one, Amy? Our next one is
we're going to talk about all the settings. Will be next week as well. It'll cover all the settings specific to basically going a little bit more in depth into the 3 dots, as Karen mentions, in each of the icons, or each of the stickies in the icons.
Right. So we will be exploring each of the stickies, but basically just from a settings standpoint. So how do you change things in the settings? Yeah. All right. So I'm done. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us. We hope this was helpful, and we hope to see you on our next one.
Yeah. Karen, if you'll pull up the PowerPoint again and go to the last slide.
Oh, that's right.
So that
I don't know where I'd be without you.
So that it has, so people can kind of write down or jot down if they need to, if this is the first time joining us,
oops, there we go.
The website again, as well as our social media sites, Facebook and Twitter. We'll post, when those recordings get posted to our YouTube site. That's where everything will get uploaded. So we'll, definitely send out a note there, maybe a tweet or a post, and also we will be tweeting and posting about the next webinar so that you guys can register for that one.
Okay, and thanks again.
Thank you, guys.